The Bargaining Council for the Civil Engineering Industry says intimidation, extortion and violence on construction sites has reached crisis levels and has caused losses of over 40 billion rand, and this was just in the year 2020. At least 183 infrastructure and construction projects with more than 63 billion rand had been affected by these disruptions across the country since 2019. Well, let's get more information now on the impact of this practice, particularly in the construction sector. And we're joined by Wikus Lategan. He is the CEO of Calgro M3, which is a construction company that has been involved in projects in KwaZulu-Natal. Wikus, good morning to you and thank you very much for your time. Can we start with the discussion around just some of your commentary contained in a report on News 24 this morning, quite a worrying one, and that is that you can no longer risk the safety of your workers who are regularly pointed with AK-47s in order for them to, I suppose, give a share of whatever it is that they are involved in terms of these projects. Otherwise, they could potentially die. Is that indeed a fact that you have had to pull out of KZN because of such threats?
Thank you for the opportunity. Good morning to you and good morning to all the listeners. I think one just have to look at the facts in context. So if I may comment on your introduction line, I think the construction mafia is very real. It's very real in KZN, and it's also very real in some other parts of the country. I think the purpose of that, of the construction mafia, is not necessarily to contribute or enhance constructivity and create economic activity for the people of South Africa, but more to hamper it for their almost self-enrichment, if I can call it that. So I think that's the whole purpose behind it. I think on the AK-47 comment, I'm not going to comment too much, but it was taken out of context. I already said the construction mafia is real. What the construction mafia's whole modus operandi is they try and control the local labour in the area. They try and control the labour force. So what we as Calgro do, and you'll see that most of our businesses are on Gauteng, around Johannesburg, as well as Cape Town, specifically City of Cape Town. We've also previously been involved in projects in Namibia, as well as Eastern Cape, as well as Bloemfontein or the Free State. And what we do in these areas is we go in and we try and form a partnership with the community. If you look at our Ballard project where I'm actually sitting today, this project, we've had independent audits on it. We used local labour. So that, what we mean by local labour is that is within a 5-kilometre proximity from the actual construction site. And why it's so important is there's a minimum of 30% local labour. We don't believe in that as a stick. We believe that we should build up and enhance the local communities and enhance economic activities in the communities we operate. So in our Ballard site where I'm sitting, we on average throughout the life of the project achieve more than 80% local labour. Now that's where the construction mafia move in. They then start manipulating that labour. They start getting the labour to say you're not allowed to work unless we say you can work. They close the sites. They're actually making economic activity quite difficult. And that was more what I was referring to. And that unfortunately gives rise to delays on these construction sites. And I think everyone that's been in construction will appreciate stoppages on these sites for days on end, in some cases weeks and months on end, like we had in KZN. At some stage we had a 6 months delay where the site was actually closed. We don't give in to their demands, so then they just close the site. Unfortunately, it's to the detriment of the local community that we're creating jobs for, that's putting food on their families' tables with the jobs they have. And that's where we see a lot of challenges. And hence, as I say, throughout the country, I mean, in Cape Town, we're operating in Kraaifontein, which I think is well known to be a gangster-driven area. We operate in the heart of Soweto and Jogolani. We've got nearly 1,000 units under construction, and we work with the community to deliver housing or human settlements for the community. But in KZN, it's different. You've got these external sources or forces coming in that's trying to impact on the community, and that's quite sad from our perspective.
And this is the reason why, and I want to get this on the record. You're saying that you have worked in communities where there is well-publicized and well-known gangsterism that is taking place. But because you have the support and cooperation of communities, you are able to stay and complete those projects because you are getting support from communities. Whereas in KZN, the situation is completely different. And so this is what I want to get on the record from you. Are you pulling out of KZN, therefore, as a result of safety concerns?
Yeah, so on the record, we're working with communities to deliver human settlement or housing for communities. It's not we delivering on them, for them. And KZN, you are 100% correct. We are finishing off our project in Kumashu. It will hopefully, the last units will be completed in March next year, and then we'll be exiting, and we've got one property left behind, the Kunubia Mall. And at this stage, the strategic objective from the company is not to go back to KZN.
Why not?
Just, it's difficult working conditions. So that, again, if I may go back to your introduction, we as a company, and I already said we work with the communities, we want to create a happy workforce. We want to create good work conditions for our workforce. And you don't want to have communities that are open to these, let's call it stoppages. Today they work, tomorrow they're not allowed to work. It gives rise to uncomfortable working conditions. As I said, this is external factors that's got no benefit to the immediate communities. It actually are third parties coming into these communities just to manipulate the communities for some sort of profit share from the labor force for self-enrichment with no direct benefit to either the community or the housing at the end of the day, or the economic development at the end of the day.
Wikus, I want to break this down into its bare bones. Tell us what kinds of demands are being made by these construction mafia when they get to some of your construction sites. What is it that is demanded of your workers there, or whoever the construction manager at the site will be?
So they generally want to bring in some of their own people. We already said we're focusing to bring in 80% local labor, or at least I think the lowest on all our sites is 70% local labor. So we're creating jobs for the immediate community, and as I said, that we determined it is roughly a 5-kilometer radius. There's different definitions, but that's what we go by. They want to bring in third parties from outside to work there. Then secondly, and again, we're not all on the ground, so I must also be careful to say what's factual and what's hearsay. But what we hear from the workers is that a portion of their wage or their performance payments, they have to effectively give away to these people. Otherwise, the site's just closed, and otherwise they can't put food on their tables. So it's more the workers get manipulated. It's more the workers get that bear the brunt of this, and what necessarily we as a company are, except for all the stoppages. If you look at Bridge City, Kumashu, the stoppages in that site cost Calgro millions at the time. That's been for our income, so not even in this year. It's already in the previous year. But the workers gets distorted, and that's the main thing for it. So it doesn't create a good and harmonious working conditions. And unfortunately, if you don't have a good and harmonious working condition, your workers are not happy, and that's what I also referred to in the article. Then you don't do the best quality work, and then you tend to redo work, which you don't get paid for. That makes you even more negative. So it's almost just a negative influence on the construction activity itself.
Are you getting any kind of support from the government officials in that province? I imagine that the MEC of economic development, at least, or more importantly, the premier, the person who is in charge of the province, have they said anything about your concerns? We're going to get to the police in a moment.
Yeah, so we haven't we've got support from local government, from eThekwini. So the Deputy Mayor's office has facilitated some meetings. Some of his staff has facilitated some meetings. The Housing and Human Settlements departments have facilitated meetings. And hence why the site was opened again, because we didn't give in to their demands after 6 months. But unfortunately, again, and you ask the question, why are we moving away? We don't, it's almost from a risk perspective, why would you go into more projects into a province if there's such a housing need in this country? I mean, we reckon the backlog in housing or human settlements is 4 million homes. It's a very easy calculation. You've got a population of 60 million people, 5 people per average household, 12 million homes needed, and you only have 7 million in the deeds office. You deduct roughly 20% for unemployment in the elderly, and that's already actually in the 5 average per household, but deduct that, and you need 4 million homes. It's such a need. It's almost, we as a company saying, which represent DFI money, we've got Papaka money, we've got DFC money, we've got NHFC, National the Human Settlements Department, financial institution, we've got banks money. Why do we have to go and risk that in challenging different conditions where there's such a big difference we can make in easier places? And that's almost just, it's a risk exercise for us as a group to say why we can't work this. It's not like there's not a need.
Now we come to the police. Are you able to tell us or give us a name of one or two of these groupings that have come to some of your sites, and have you reported them to the police? What has been your experience trying to bring the police to basically intervene?
Because totally of the names of groupings, I don't think it's fair to disclose that. Remember, we are still on site, as I said, till most probably end of February, end of March. So at this stage, we wouldn't like to disclose it. We as a company are working with the groupings. The site is currently in production. So, as I said, it's a more strategic decision for the group to move out. It's not like we've got these active challenges currently. We've had these challenges 12 months ago, and therefore we don't want to do new projects. We did have support from the police at that stage, but one must be careful as to where the police operate, where the police lines are. So yes, you get support, but the process is quite stringent. It's not that you can get some police support, get them removed from site and move forward. Then you have to get restraint orders for our courts and the like. South Africa is actually a country with fairly good legal processes. The problem is sometimes if you have this illegal activity that's not regulated by these good legal processes, which make it quite stringent and time consuming. And hence why if there's stoppages, it takes quite some time to reopen these sites through normal challenge. But we did get support from the police at the time, yes.
Final question. The President has spoken many times against the so-called construction mafia, but there's a difference between condemning an activity, an illegal activity, and actually putting money where your mouth is. Do you believe that the President, having spoken about this, is actually taking active steps via the government he runs, or you think that this is lip service at times, or at the best of times?
No, I think what I can say, there's an active drive from national government to erode these activities. There's generally an active drive from provinces to erode these activities, as well as local municipalities. As I referred to earlier, the deputy mayor, the deputy city managers, their officers supporting us, the police. So I think they're putting in a real effort. The problem is, what we cannot report is our police are short-staffed. I think that's a national fact. And there's a lot of these activities ongoing, and it's evolving, and there's a lot of challenges. I mean, if you take KwaZulu-Natal with the floods, there's been a lot of flood damage.